All right, welcome everyone. We have got another edition of the Flow Show. We got my man Phil Galfond. This is our part 2, number 122. But Phil, talk to me. What's going on?
Good question. I don't know. A lot's been going on, except this last month I've been kind of on my first break in a while. I mean, the last year has been over the last year I've been playing these challenges, which has really taken up kind of a lot of my time and focus. But it's been really fun because, as you know, like for the past several years prior, I had not been playing quite as much and was focusing on the business, and got to a point where I was missing poker pretty badly, and so decided to challenge myself and others, and play some poker and do it in a way that could promote the business as well. So it was kind of a win-win. I wasn't, was taking time away from the day-to-day, but still helping the business while I played.
Yeah, these challenges, I don't know if you could technically get credit for it or the heads up, or maybe there's the high stakes duel, there's the feud, right, with Daniel and Doug was very popular. You obviously the Venividi one was all time. I think that was just like, we got to talk about it because I think it was right before you were starting, maybe when we were last live on the podcast. That was all time stuff. Could you kind of walk through, for those that maybe didn't see it or just need a memory because it's so wild, like what happened there, and who is this guy you were playing? He's one of the best in the world considered currently. I mean, you're kind of considered, the GOAT gets tossed around. That word, I kind of don't like it, right? Because it's just like the GOAT, this, GOAT, that, all over the place. But in PLO, I don't think anyone can really hold. You're kind of known as the guy, but you've been around a long time. So explain how that came about, who Venividi is, and how that match sort of went through.
Yeah, so it was the end of 2019. I decided to issue kind of a challenge, and it was not an entirely open challenge, a la the DIR challenge of many years ago. It was kind of it was open to some groups of people. I'll try to summarize, but others I just said reach out and let's figure something out. And so Venividi was the first match that I played, and actually it was probably a mistake to play him first because he was very tough, but he was a tough negotiator, and part of the terms he wanted to play early, and so I played him first. He's well known in the online streets, but obviously not so much in the live streets. And he's recently, only I think, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, gotten on Twitter and grown a bit of a following. But before that, he was entirely quiet and anonymous, and he's still anonymous as far as his real name, but he's out there with his screen name and kind of sharing more with the community.
Right.
But yeah, he's one of the best online. Played more six max than heads up. And so this challenge was, a lot of studying for me and a lot of studying for him too, to focus on heads up. And we started in January 2020. It ended up taking a lot longer than I thought it would. It took many months. And it went really poorly right from the start. And so it was, I think, a combination of me kind of having a lot of rust to shake off and some variance going against me. But I basically just lost almost every session at the start. And about, I want to say, I don't know, 8 to 10,000 hands into maybe 8,000 hands into our 25K hand challenge. He had me, he was up 45 Mayans, so 900K euro, because we were playing 100, 200. And I took a break at that point, and basically to decide if I wanted to continue, because the way the bet works is we had a side bet and we just play, and either player can quit. They just lose the side bet at that point. It's the same as losing the match. And so
which was the side bet at that? I forget the exact odds or whatever.
So compared to the amount the amount I was losing in the match, it wasn't that much. I laid him 2-1 on a small side. I mean, relatively small side bet for the stakes. I think I would win 100K. He would win 200K.
That's a lot of salaries for a lot of people out there.
It is, yes.
You got to be careful. I know. I'm giving a hard time, but in comparison to what could happen. Right. It's
in comparison to being down 900K. Right. The 200K I would lose in the side bet was a smaller amount. But at that point, like, my decision was tough because I was basically drawing near dead to actually make a comeback and win. Have that 300K swing of losing 200 to winning 100. But I felt like I had felt for most of the match like I was a favorite, but of course was starting to question that given the results. I mean, the results were just really, really bad, and so I had to decide if I wanted to keep fighting in a spot where, you know, I wasn't expecting to have any shot to actually win outright, but I kind of wanted to prove to myself that I could beat him or at least hold my own. And felt like, you know, I decided to come back and keep playing, and I kind of made it my personal goal to be above break even for the rest of the match, maybe win, you know, a quarter of it back. And we came back and it kind of went exactly the other way as it was going. And I was winning most sessions early, and not quite as quickly as he did in the early going, but pretty close. And by the time we got to, I don't know, 22,000 hands, we were back to even, which is not a scenario that I imagined. I mean, I knew it was possible, but it was not why I returned to playing. I didn't think I could actually, you know, make the comeback. And so like the match defied the odds already in a couple ways. Like the 45 buy-in downswing was really, really improbable. The 45 buy-in upswing, perhaps even more improbable to the viewer because it seemed like I was getting smashed. But then it continued to defy the odds, because normally in these things, you know, you get down to the final 500 hands and somebody's got a 10 buy-in lead, and it's just a matter of playing it out. Nobody's going to make the comeback, and you can play a style that, you know, kind of play prevent defense and make sure that somebody doesn't make the comeback. And then if it really gets down to it, you can fold out even. But it doesn't make sense to fold out till you get really close. But anyways, I was never expecting one of these matches to be decided within the last 1,000 hands. I thought they'd already be set, but we actually went into the final day within a buy-in of each other. I think he was up like 10, 15K in the final day. Mm-hmm. And it just made for a very compelling match. Like we were probably getting on Twitch, I want to say like 1,000, 1,500 viewers normally, and on the final day we had over 25,000 just watching the final day of the match because it was so intense. And anyways, I mean, long story short, I won with, I managed to win enough to fold out with like, I don't know, I want to say 40 hands left or 20 hands left. I forget what it was.
And at that point when you fold out, was that, I mean, that's just, obviously there's 200K on the line, and that's just like what you're supposed to do. Like what number of hand, I mean, you have probably had someone kind of calculating and watching it closely, and you were doing the math, but when did you, was there any could he have done that at some point with a little deeper in the match to win? Or is it like, it just was, you were so close going that last day, right? Because like in theory, you could almost fold out or just limp and play a completely different strategy and, you know, whatever down the stretch. So how did that seems like a very interesting part of it, especially that close.
It is really interesting, and it's kind of an ICM type situation that is new, as far as I know, to poker, where like, I mean, like your chips, your actual dollar amount that you're winning. Well, there are a couple of factors, right? There's your win percentage of the side bet, and then there's your actual winnings in the hand. I did the math with some friends like in the final week, and was pretty surprised with how long you wait to fold out and how long you wait to drastically change your style. And I think there was maybe, I don't know whether or not there was a point that Venny could have folded out. I think not, like way early. But if there, let's say hypothetically, there was, he could have folded out when he was up 900K and lost back 700K folding out to secure the, you know, the 200K side bet. That doesn't make sense for him, especially when you think you're a favorite. And, you know, just like at that point, especially because a lot of people have criticized him for playing normally when he was up 900K and giving me a chance to win. But the probability that I would come back is something like a, you know, 1 or 2%. And so him risking a 1 or 2% shot at that 300K swing is not really that much in EV when you're talking about sacrificing EV to play a style that's worse.
Yeah, he seemed to be a really good sport from what I was seeing on and
Yeah.
just like Twitter and how, you know, I don't know how much you talk with him or your interaction before, after, during, but you know, mentally, can you talk a bit about what was happening when you took that break? Because you know, it again, forget about your financial situation, whether you have X or Y amount of money. You know, losing $1 million, it could have got worse, right? Could have lost 2 million at that rate, or obviously, right, it could have gone even
Hmm.
worse. You could lose a side bet, but also just like from a, you know, you run a business, you run it once, you're Phil Galfond, you got, there's like some respect and you know, to not get blown out, like you lose a close one or it goes whatever, put up a fight. Because at what did you, like, what did you do during that period? Because that's got to be tough, you know, fair, you're at home, you have your child, and you're just like, it must feel a little overwhelming to, like, when you took that pause, like what's going to happen, how bad could it really get, do I want to stop, like did you do anything like meditation and shift your, did you study more, did you review what had happened, what was your actual process at that point when you took the break and do you think it was a lot of luck, or did you actually do some proactive things that you think made a huge difference?
I think it's tough to say. So I was working with Elliot Rowe throughout the match, which
That's
is
American.
which was very helpful.
Yes.
Um, and he kind of helped me keep my head on straight as much as is possible in a scenario like that. It was definitely depressing, and especially to, you know, a 45 buy-in downswing is rough anytime, but it was a 45 buy-in downswing that started exactly when I resumed playing poker and resumed playing poker in the public eye on a big stage. And so it was definitely, you know, some element of it was embarrassing. And part of wanting to continue and even just like win back 100K throughout the rest of the match was kind of to prove. I mean, I should say to prove to myself, but admittedly, it's to prove to others that I could, you know, still play against a guy this strong. And so that was a factor I was weighing. Obviously, the financial factor is very meaningful. I don't think I would have let it get to 2 million. I think probably at, you know, one point, I think I hadn't decided on a specific stop loss, but I think realistically like 1.3 or 1.5 is when I would have stopped, depending on like how it maybe even less, but how it felt when I got there. Like if it felt like I was getting outplayed or it was just, you know, cooler after cooler, things like that.
Yeah,
Um,
and obviously he probably has some hedge, or you know, people. I don't know if he maybe he has his own act. I don't know his exact situation. He's one of the best, but you know, how do you think? I mean, that is a pretty significant like mental to deal with on your end. It's like uplifting. It's just like all time, right? Like there's something to never
mhm.
forget. Out of all the wins, you've won 3 World Series bracelets. You've got, you know, tournament wins. You've had stuff that has to stand out as just like kind of like wow. I mean, it's just almost seemed make believe. Like it really
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
it's basically impossible. Forget about the comeback, but like that it went down the wire, the big lead, the story of it all. It's on your thing. Like, was there you know, where does that rank in sort of your poker career in terms of I don't know, moments, excitements? Where is it up there in terms of your
Yeah.
split, for
I
example?
think it was really top. It did that final day really felt similar to like a World Series final table. Like just, yeah, the feeling the whole time. And I think honestly it was more intense than any win, even though, you know, in the end of the match I won like €1,000. I was up a few big blinds and the side bet. So I've had bigger scores, but it definitely felt a lot more intense because I mean it was a, you know, 3+ month journey. And it's, you know, a lot of people said when we were like 3,000 hands left in the match and I had gotten it close to even, people are like, well, you already won, you know, making a comeback like this is amazing. But you know, you don't, you want to finish the story. You know, making a massive comeback and then losing by one buy-in is
Yeah.
there was a lot emotionally riding on it, for both of us. And actually, as hard as like you're saying, as hard as the early going was for me, I think probably the second half on him is even harder emotionally to deal with because like I'm going, yeah, like I had some things I was dealing with, like it was such a public stage for me and I was getting embarrassed, frankly. But for him, he had, I mean, he just felt, I'm sure, like he was crushing me and, you know, he was going to keep winning. And there's basically zero chance I would make the comeback. And so to have that bad of a downswing after that, um, like you said, he is a really good sport. He handled it extremely well in all of our conversations. And even after the fact, like he was still happy he played the challenge. He said it ended up being a big net positive for him. He came out a lot stronger a player. And yeah, he was in shockingly good spirits about the whole thing. I was very impressed by that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And to be fair, would you say this is spurred because was the Daniel Negreanu and Polk? Did it happen? It started after the talks of it. You know, there was a feud with Esfandiari and Helmuth, which got really great reviews, and I love that table and the live feeling. It just seems like heads up. It used to be people would go box or MMA, right? That was how people settled things. Now there's the heads up format and Poker Go, and Carrie and B Hanks and Platinum doing the coverage, and it's exciting. People like heads up. It's pure. They used to have the NBC heads up tournaments, which no longer exist, and I think they could actually get a 25K or 50K heads up 64 person pretty easy nowadays. Like it wouldn't be too hard to get it, but it is fun. People like to watch it, and I thought would you say that was a start sort of this heads up movement of what's going on because of how well that went?
I mean, timing wise, it definitely was. I don't know if I can take all the credit. I don't know what gave Doug the idea to challenge Daniel. I would imagine that for Poker Go, and I could probably just ask them, but I would imagine for them it's more a response to COVID, and how can we get some coverage of some poker without 8 guys sitting around the table close to each other, during the pandemic. And so I think they probably thought of it as a way to get a couple people playing, and it actually turned out being that was like the Phil versus Antonio match, and I know that now Phil versus Daniel's coming up, but that match was probably my favorite televised poker that I've watched. It was really entertaining, and compared to like a high stakes poker, which is awesome and really entertaining too. Actually, maybe that's a bad example because those hands get really entertaining, but compared to like a WSOP coverage where it's just like kings versus ace queen and it gets all in for 30 big blinds, like the heads up strategy element was really entertaining, as well as of course the rivalry and the banter, and all that. So I'm glad that heads up is gaining popularity because I think it's an excellent format for viewing. It's obviously I love to play it, and it lends itself really well to kind of the story of it's one-on-one who's going to come out on top.
Right. Yeah, it's the purest form for sure, and obviously the one that you've done a long time. What's your thoughts on this Negreanu Helmuth matchup? Like, I don't know if it's official or it looks like they're talking about it. I think it will be because of Poker Go. They're both involved, and obviously it would be it's big. It's like those kind of matchups when you get Ivy or those kind of 4 original core. I'd say like Esfandiari, Helmuth, Ivy, Negreanu. Those are must see TV, and there's a lot on the line. And what do you think the line is on that if it does go down? Like, where do you place based on just what you know of their games and personalities? Who do you think matches up better there?
So, I mean, Daniel's obviously been studying heads up much more than he ever has, much more than most people ever have for his match against Doug. And so, I mean, I would think that he has to be the favorite. But that said, I was really impressed by Phil in the Phil versus Antonio match. I thought he played like I was really impressed. I posted something about how impressed I was. And actually
Phil didn't miss that either. Phil, no.
Yeah, no.
Phil's one of the best. I love that guy. He's really a quality, man. He's funny. Yeah. He's really, he doesn't miss anything. He's like one of those guys that just, I don't know if he's got assistants on it, but like the guy doesn't miss a beat on anything.
He doesn't.
He doesn't miss a tweet. So
yeah. Yeah, but he I was really impressed by him, and I actually think, if they were playing a match similar to Doug versus Daniel, like 25K hands of online heads up no limit, I think Daniel will be a massive favorite at this point, but with all the studying that he's done. But in this format, it's a heads up sit and go. It's pretty deep, good structure. I think it's going to be a lot closer. And so what'll be interesting is what Daniel's been studying is, I mean, he from his interviews, it seems like he's, they did they attempted some exploits, but he was studying a lot of GTO play, and Phil plays in a way that just like there are lines that you don't see a solver ever use. And so it'll be interesting. I think the big question for me is how Daniel's going to handle these situations that he hasn't studied so much. And I mean, studying optimal play does prepare you for those situations, if you can think on your feet well, based on what you've learned. And so I think the big question is how he's going to handle kind of the weird way that Phil plays. I think that Daniel should be a favorite probably, but I would not lay significant odds on Daniel. I think it's going to be pretty close actually in terms of win percentage.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting points about that, and Daniel, it's almost like the whole Daniel Doug relationship is a bit bizarre, right? Like,
yeah,
I actually was saying this. I thought they would get a bromance going. You kind of saw it right away on the opening, which I thought actually took away a little bit of the allure of it, right? Like to kind of see these guys genuinely not like each other, and then see them kind of like being friendly. But then there was the thing with Ryan Fee. I don't know if you saw that Lamborghini where he put "Thank you, D Negs," and there was some package talk and this and that. Like there's a lot going on there, and obviously there's still like there's some needles, and Doug ultimately came away and won a bunch of money, and I think his friends and people won money. But Daniel, you could argue if he sticks with the amount of poker he plays, and being in Vegas and a lot of high stakes poker scenes of tournaments where there's a lot of money down the heads up and shorthanded play, and I think there's no question Daniel is gotten he's sharp. Like you wouldn't want to play Daniel heads up or right now. Like there's the guy definitely knows what's going on. Like he studied the ranges, the blinds, the stacks. Like he's in the zone. Like to your point about Helmuth. So I think like long term, if Daniel keeps, let's just take a decade of playing, I would think in some of the big buy-in tournaments now, there's $1 million tournaments, there's 100Ks a lot, the big ones 250s. Like he probably did improve a bunch, like maybe more EV than even the money that was lost, right? I would imagine probably a lot more even.
I think that in some ways our situations are a lot different, but in some ways I feel like I can probably relate to Daniel in that like he didn't spend time off of poker so much like I did. I was focusing kind of full time on the business, and I would play like a World Series event here and there. But what he did do is, at some point in his career, he was making all of his money from playing poker. And then I imagine it went to making very little of his money from playing poker, given how much he could make in sponsorship money. And so kind of his job in his mind kind of shifted perhaps to, being an ambassador. And so I think probably this, like for me, getting back into poker and working really hard and finding that motivation to compete at a high level again, it meant a lot to me. And it's, like I imagine, like me, Daniel got into poker because he's competitive and he loves to play and loves to compete. And so I think that he probably felt, even though, I'm sure he's really disappointed that it didn't go how he'd hoped, but I'm sure he's also still excited and like excited to have that skill level that he hasn't had for a while. Not that he's had great results, throughout his career, but being able to compete like nosebleed, heads up, no limit cash is something different. Very, very few people can do that. And like, especially very few people who don't come from that background. Like he plays all the games, he plays tournaments. To get really strong in this format is really, really hard. And so I think it's probably, even though he lost, been fun for him to kind of, to compete at a very high level.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because that is something that there's a handful, and your point about being a poker player, he was grinding, going around, whatever, and then all of a sudden he sort of became the guy in poker and the ambassador, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, he's getting a big salary from Poker Stars at the time, now he's with GG, he's got deals, he's got opportunities and all that. So it's like, you're right, it's at some point there's only so much time, and that it becomes where it's like, all right, I'm making this money, does it make sense for me to spend 2 hours every day grind? You obviously want to be good and compete, but like he knows how to win tournaments. Like Daniel can get in any tournament and finish a tournament. Like it's not, whatever. He knows he's maybe not know every blind, shove, range, and whatever. But it's an interesting point. I think that's interesting for content creators / business part of poker. Like even yourself, like you're saying, how do you kind of balance that? And before the challenge, was that part of the reason or the motivation? Because do you feel like, where do you feel the time? You have a son. Actually, we're very similar in that. Like, I feel like I'm more on the business side of poker content as well. I have a wife, have a son. Where do you find the time to kind of do all that and then study? And were you studying like over the last 5, 6, 7 years, or were you just like, more focused on the business, would you say?
Yeah. Well, I have the same question for you, but I'll go first. Yeah, it's really hard. And for me, I do not do a great job of balance. And I'm kind of, especially like, I don't know, I think a lot of us in poker have similar personalities. And when I'm focused on the business and trying to help the business grow, it's easy to get like very wrapped up in that and just completely focused on that. And when I'm trying to play high level poker, that just takes a lot of focus too. And so I don't know if I could do like a 50-50. I think what I do is periods of kind of intense focus on the business and no focus or very little focus on poker, and then intense focus on poker, and then just high level decisions with the business. And I kind of go back and forth. But yeah, during the time that, during the few years prior to the challenges, I was not studying poker at all, really. And I don't do a good job of half and half. Obviously, with the family, like I'm always spending time with my family, and the way I do that is I just kind of have end of my work, start of my work day, end of my work day, regardless of whether it's poker or business, and then family time. But as far as splitting focus does not work well for me. I like to have like a primary focus at any given time.
Yeah. So just to build on that, what is your, give me, because I think I obviously can relate. I think we're super similar, especially with the age of our son. We have one child. We're married. We also, not really purely playing. That's not our business model for what we're doing. But what is like some tricks you do? Like, do you wake up, you block off, you literally say, okay, I'm starting my day. Is it every day the same? Or obviously, like, I tell you have a podcast, or you count that part of your work day. Like, how do you do it where you make sure that you're spending optimal time with your son and your family, but also, moving forward on your goals and business?
Yeah, it's not super organized, but I kind of, through the time that I was just working on the business, I got a much more regimented work day in place. And I was basically, my sleep schedule's changed recently, but basically it was, get up at 6-ish, spend an hour and a half, because my son would wake up a little before then. Spend an hour and a half with the family over coffee, and then be in the office until 5:30, and then spend the evening with the family, and that was usually 6 days a week, and then Sundays just family day, which I guess doesn't work for MTT players, but I don't play this, so that's generally what it's been. But then obviously there are, we're doing something one day and I take the day off, or we have a 4-day trip somewhere. Like it's not hard and fast rule, but that's generally been my structure, and that's what I've carried into once the challenges started too. And fortunately, most of my opponents have been in Europe and wanted to play early my time, so I haven't had an issue with like during the hours that I'd normally be working anyways. I was a little worried that Chance, when we played, wanted to play. I think at first he wanted to play later, but then he had a daughter on the way, so changed that. But yeah, I would struggle if it was like somebody wanted to play 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. or something, because it's not what my schedule's like now.
For sure. And I like I said, I can relate. And I just think that's always like the balance thing is always something that's super the same way. It's like kind of, ideally it's like, all right, I want to do things balanced, but a lot of times the way to get things done or push forward is to really push in a spot and do things right. But, and do it all, see it through and just focus on one thing. I'm a bit scattered personality wise, like, podcast, other stuff, YouTube.
You have a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I like, but it's not, it's they say there's different sayings. I think ultimately it comes down to the person, right? You got to know yourself and know what you're capable of. Also know how to say no, because it's also easy to just take on too much or want to do everything. But I don't want to the heads up stuff super fascinating. I don't want to spend the whole podcast on. Although we could probably spend hours on what's Phil and Bill and Landon are coming up. There's I want to just touch on your match with Chance. You ended up winning pretty clearly. How do you think that went, and what would you say about, just kind of summarize how that challenge went from start to finish?
It was another swingy one in that, I started off winning, it was same stakes as Venividi, 100, 200, but dollars instead of euro. I started off winning 10, 15 buy-ins, so like 250, 300K, and then he went on a 30 buy-in run to be up to have me down 300K. But then from there, it kind of just was smooth sailing. And I don't know. I do think actually I played worse at the beginning of this match. Like the beginning of this match, I played worse than I have in any other challenge. And I think that's a testament to the way he played, because I was expecting him to take an approach like similar to my other opponents, but frankly a little bit worse, because he hadn't been in the game like heads up PLO like a lot of them had. But and what I mean by that is study solvers, try to execute an optimal strategy, and not really do a lot of guessing. But he did the opposite. He was playing a very kind of exploitative strategy, putting me in a lot of tough spots and really challenging, like what I'm saying, that we'll see how Daniel handles against Phil Hellmuth. But like putting me in a lot of spots where I was not familiar with, like I hadn't played that spot before, and so I had to figure it out on the fly. And it had me off my game for a while, and it took me a long time in the match to wrap my head around it and figure out the proper adjustments. It's hard to say whether I figured that out and then it was smooth sailing, or I ran good. It was a weird match in that, like, it felt really easy at times and felt really hard at times. And I think that's just being kind of fooled by the variance of it. So it's hard to say. But fortunately, yeah, from like, halfway or earlier than halfway on, it just started going really well and never looked back.
Yeah. And the two other, I want to ask about the Jungle Man challenge and also the Bill Perkins, because those are you have two active ones that are sort of started, but like I remember actually Jungle Man was played on my Twitch, which was funny.
Yeah.
And he was doing that on there, and he's got his whole Ravens Falcons things, and he's doing he's just an anomaly, just such an interesting guy to play. But what's the status on those? When's the last time you played any of those? Are those going to get finished? Are they just kind of like lingering? Obviously the Bill Land and Tice people are joking, like, and Bill's one of my closest friends, and Jungle Land, I speak with, and a good buddy of mine too. But Bill is just all over the place. Like, I'm actually wondering how he's going to do 25,000 hands. Like, how many of you played with him? Like, not many, right? You guys played
with him? No, against Bill, we've probably played, if I had to guess, like 600. I don't know, maybe 1,000. I do think that's going to be. So I always knew that was going to be a hard one to finish, and I knew it would take time. So I was in Vancouver for these challenges for about 5 months, and I basically told him, whenever you're free to play, let me know, and I can like fit it in between my other matches. And we only got 2 sessions in. Right. Now I'm in Vegas. I'm in the U.S., and so that match and the Jungle Man match are on hold until we're in kind of the same jurisdictions to play kind of unregulated online poker sites. Right. And so they're both still going to happen. There's also the other challenge that hasn't happened is Brandon Adams. We're going to play live. We have a 5-day live challenge.
Oh, nice.
But
what's that? Are the details on that out?
Yeah, it's 100, 200. We play. I think it's 5-day. I might be misremembering. I think it's 5 days, 6 or 8 hours a day. I think it's 5 days, 8 hours a day of live. So however many hands that is. And I think I should just look this up to make sure. But I think I laid him 150K to 100K, because obviously it's not a very big sample.
It's PLO?
Yeah, heads up PLO 100, 200.
Interesting. So yeah, because I actually just had lunch with him the other day, and Brandon's very interesting guy, a sharp guy, and I didn't know. I forgot that he does play some PLO, right? He plays mixed games and stuff. So
he's played PLO for a while. Yeah, it's 40 hours, 150K to 100K.
How did that come up? Just friendly banter, or what, or like just whatever?
It was just when I made my initial post asking about challengers reach out to me. He reached out and said, "Hey, would you do?" Well, actually, we first negotiated an online challenge, and then he didn't want to travel. Whatever. It turned into a live challenge pretty quickly, and no, that'll be another interesting one to play. I guess I used to play with him a lot back in the Full Tilt days, but I haven't played with him much recently.
Right.
And yeah, he's a cool, very interesting guy.
All right, let's quickly give me your take on Bill Perkins, Landon Tice. Are you familiar with this guy, Landon Tice? He just kind of merged. Like, I love the story that he was like, he was basically moderating or doing stuff on Joey's YouTube until like just locked himself, it seems like, into a room and just became one of the best in the world. He's won a tournament live, and he just seems like a guy you like to root for, young kid, and kind of living his best life. And Bill again, is just whatever. And there's a spot, I guess, 9 BBs or whatnot. What do you think of this kind of match? Before we spent a half an hour on Heads Up, which I think it's fascinating. But let's close out.
We'll close out with this.
With Bill and Landon. What's your take on this?
I think. Both. I've known Bill a bit for a while, and is obviously an awesome guy. Landon seems like a great guy. I don't know him too well, but know him a little bit, and he's obviously like. I think it was. I don't know exactly what his goals are, but he's gotten himself like very quickly. He's in the spotlight, and really grown his personal brand. I don't know if he's even intended to, but he's done a great job of that, and he seems to be, from what I can tell, a great player. I think that if it were me, like laying significant number of big blinds, I think that even at 9 big blinds, if I had to guess, I would think Landon's a favorite, but not a big one. And so if I were like cross booking, I would probably bet on Landon. But to play a challenge like that, when you're just hoping to eke out a few big blinds extra, like it's a lot of hours to put in for a very small win rate that you're hoping for. And obviously, if Bill works really, really hard and comes out stronger than Landon expects, it could obviously be pretty costly. So I always, like in my challenges, when I've had spots where I think I'm a big favorite, I've laid odds on the side bet, and I prefer that to laying big blinds, both in terms of like the narrative, and also in terms of as a player. It just it just doesn't feel good to be like trying to grind out, to win by a big margin just to grind out a small edge in the end, because you're paying so much in BB per 100. But it's going to be a really fun match to watch, I think.
I think it will be fun, and it's just a matter, I think, of Bill, how much time and effort, or I guess where it's going to be done. It's going to be a little easier jurisdiction wise, so I think they can play anywhere. On ACR likely, but I forget. I was just talking with Bill the other day, but yeah, it's fun. It's great to see Bill. Bill's always doing some fun stuff and keeping it light and making entertaining and just having a good time. So very cool. Well, let's talk about the current landscape of poker. Things are happening. What's up with Run It Once? I know a big course released. My man Pads, who has Pads on Pads, a course is out. It's new. It looks fun. I just was looking at it, and now I can't find it. Where is this? Run It Once.
All the way on the left. Yeah, probably.
Pads on Pads. So what does that even? So it's Patrick on Patrick. Like, he went deep. I catch his hand reviews each night, and I can basically say I'm doing PL Solver and stuff because I watch his stuff, and I catch up, and it helps, like, to take some stuff in interesting spots. And I love he's just a guy that you got to root for, and he's just everywhere and a monster. So how did this come about? And tell me about this course as well, because it does look interesting, and there's a lot of good content out there. So what separates this in particular?
I think what separates this is just how much of himself he dedicated to this and how much he was willing to put out there. He basically, so the way it came about is he tweeted that he wanted to release a course and said something like, who should I partner with? And we saw that. We immediately reached out to him. We said, with us. And he spent like basically an entire 3 months making this course, like all day, every day. It's something like 90 hours of content and growing, because he'll continue to add to it. And it's been really popular so far. It's been selling a lot. I mean, more than our other courses, over this period of time by quite a bit. And I think it's because he's putting everything out there, his whole kind of approach to how he prepares, how he learns, spots where, like, both optimal strategy and exploitative strategy, and how he views different things. And it's broken down into sections, obviously. And I don't know, he just put so much of himself into it, and it really shows in the content. I mean, I haven't watched all 90 hours. I've watched, a couple handfuls of videos so far, but it's just been really good. And he's also brought in others to help out. Like he has several videos with Kevin Rabichow on heads up play in tournaments. And I know he has some others in there too. Those are the only ones I've watched so far. But yeah, he just, I don't know, he dedicated himself to making this course as good as he possibly could for several months, and I think it shows in the content.
How many total hours is it, and is this something that can you explain how much it is and how it works exactly? Because I know you guys have a bunch of material.
Yeah. So Run It Once training was always just a subscription training site. So we had 2 memberships, Elite and Essential, $100 a month and $25 a month, and we put out 2 videos a day. For Elite, and Essential has access to like 40% of those videos that we put out. We only started releasing courses, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe a little longer, and we started with so we have a series called From the Ground Up. So the first one was just From the Ground Up, No Limit Hold'em. And the idea is even our Essential membership is a little bit advanced, and we wanted people to have an on-ramp to that for people who are less advanced and couldn't quite understand all the concepts in our Essential videos. And so we put together the From the Ground Up. So kind of not like doesn't know what a deck of cards is, but pretty basic understanding all the way up to, being pretty good. And that was really popular. And so we started doing it. We did From the Ground Up MTT, From the Ground Up PLO. And then if you click on courses, it should have everything. And then we also partnered with Elliot Rowe, and he has a course, A-Game Poker what is it called? A-Game Masterclass, something like that. It's really good. A-Game Poker Masterclass. I mean, I know you know Elliot. Yeah. It's really good. I've really enjoyed it. And I don't know, one thing that I found in working with Elliot personally and in the course is that you go in to work on your poker mindset, and then you just like figure things out about your life. And so I found that really useful. But yeah, Pads on Pads is our next course. So we've only just kind of started on courses, and really Elliot's course and Pads on Pads are the only kind of high ticket courses. They're each $1,000 normally, although Pads on Pads is I think $699 for a limited time now for launch. The others are in the like $50 to $150 range. Nice. So these are the first two big courses.
Yeah, and I mean, Patrick Leonard, I think it's hard to argue. He's definitely one of the best players, multi-tournament players of all time. If currently always just kind of working, grinding, and really has an interesting approach to the game. What do you believe when you is this something that when you study or you buy a course like this, is it best to just watch straight through, or like how do you study poker? What would be your suggestion to people on stuff like this? You just go or look at the areas of the course and say, okay, this is what I want to focus on. What do you find works best for you, and how? Because I struggle. Like I've done Raise Your Edge. I'm from that community. I've watched some Run It Once stuff, obviously, and I know there's 3 or 4 major. Upswing has one as well. There's a lot of info, which is great. There's different courses. People like learning differently, different tactics, different little nuances, or just also a lot of the same info, but just presented differently. So what would you say when you're making a decision to buy a course? Why is Run It Once, or who does it appeal more to? What type of learning, and how does it work?
I think there are definitely different ways to approach videos. I know some people who watch even videos that are not part of a course. They just watch a video and are taking notes and pausing it. And they go back over their kind of file of notes from different videos and their learnings, and they write down key takeaways. For me, I think it's about knowing yourself. For me personally, I like to watch videos more passively. And the reason for that is, I only have so many hours in a day that I can do like intense focused work before I burn out. And I learned this kind of more than ever recently in these challenges, where I was trying to just like play these challenges, then spend a few hours working on the business, then spend a few hours studying. And it was just like, I couldn't keep my level of focus. And so the way I like to learn is, I do some focused work on like hand history review, database review, or solvers, but then I watch videos more passively and it doesn't burn me out. So like that's how I personally like to watch videos. I know some people watch them very actively and like I said, take notes and kind of, you know, post a lot of questions to the video maker, which obviously you can do. It's not my personal preference because I just like to conserve my energy. But yeah, I think you can do it either way. And the benefit of these courses, and specifically pads on pads, is well, I guess actually all the courses they're well structured, and so you can, if you want, just focus on pre-flop and whether you're taking notes or you watch the whole pre-flop section twice or you watch it through and you go back and be like, okay, well I realized that like I don't totally get blind versus blind 3-bet pots or something. Then you go back and watch that one again, maybe with more focus. But I think it's very different for everybody and really kind of how you prefer to learn. Some people love working, with solvers all day, and I burn out on that very quickly as well. So you got to just know yourself.
Yeah, it's a bit overwhelming. It's also not so fun, and it's like complicated because it can take a long time. Not that it's just not fun, but it's like a lot of. I don't think it's about being lazy. It's just you got to learn it. You got to know how to do it. Then it takes 30 minutes or so to input one thing, and it loads and do stuff. So it's kind of pretty tedious if you don't. If you're ever lucky enough to have someone like Pads or other people that do the work or have done the stuff, and you can kind of get it and learn how to use it. It's good, but I think it is a little bit overwhelming and tedious to if you're the one diving in and trying to do it yourself. So. Obviously great and very cool to see that, and I look forward to checking that out as well. I haven't got that yet, but I will look at that. I can't wait to. I see his Instagram Pads reveals a lot. He's a giver.
He does.
He gives a lot of stuff. He gives back. He does programs. He does Discord chat groups. He answers people's questions. Like he's just one of those kind of really nice ambassadors that has an outward focus in poker. So it's great to see you guys teaming up. Tell me also about Run It Up. What's going on specifically? I know that people have been asking about multi-table tournaments. How is online poker? How is the world of online poker right now? What's up at Run It Once? And the U.S. is coming, it looks like, for some places. Is that even on the docket? Is that something Run It Once could be in some of these states? Or give me the rundown. Run It Once, current poker live, Michigan, Pennsylvania, U.S. What's going on there?
Yeah, so Run It Once poker has you mentioned multi-table tournaments. We've had we've kind of been building the site as we've released it. So we released it with cash games only, added a lot of features over the first year, and then recently released Sit and Go's. Really cool Sit and Go format. Actually, I'm really proud of what we built, but we're still not done. We still have MTTs to build. We still have mobile to build, and those are the two big ticket items. Are really all of our focus for 2021. I don't think they're coming in the next. They're not coming in the next few months, but they're both coming in 2021 is the plan. As far as it does seem like online poker's coming to the US in kind of a more serious way than it has in the past, decade. It's been moving slowly, and I think it's going to start to move a little bit quicker thanks to, sports betting, online sports betting having some victories in the US recently. It's really tough to enter the US as a small site. Like it's basically not, we can't do it on our own. So the cost is too prohibitive, not just of acquiring the licenses, but then operating and growing a player base in, these small jurisdictions where, like if you enter Nevada with a poker site and you get 5% of the market, you just don't have any games. So you need to, you need to not only get the licenses, but you need to come in with a bang and some marketing money to spend and things like that. So we're not really close to a spot where we could do it on our own. But there are a lot of companies in the US looking to get into poker. And so it's definitely possible that at some point we find a partner that kind of wants to take us to the US and helps us get into the US in a bigger way. But whether that happens or not, the good news for poker in general and poker in America is that I do think more states are coming. We've seen how the government works. It's not going to be super fast, but I think states are going to be trickling in faster over the next few years much faster than they have over the last decade since Black Friday. So I'm hopeful. Go ahead.
The Phil Galfond stamp of point of view right now. Do you believe, or is there going to be another? Will we ever get back to the heights? Do you think there's going to be a mini boom? content now, Poker Go, real, a lot of people doing streaming on Twitch. It does feel like there's been a boom of growth. And, I see the Hard Rock in Fort Lauderdale, WPT, pretty impressive to see 1,600 during still kind of COVID, pre-vaccine, just starting to roll out a bit. But that was like the third largest WPT ever. They put a $1 million guarantee. It got like over 5. People chomping at the bit to play. Masks, mask, glass, whatever. It just seems like people are really ready to play some poker. So it does seem like it seems good. What do you think, though? What do you think about like all of the live and online? What kind of like future forecasts for the next year to 5 years?
Yeah, I think the next year we won't see a massive change, but I think in 5 years I do expect a mini boom. And I think the reason for that is I think it's going to become legal in more states. And as it does that, as it becomes legal in several states, and we have some big players competing, there's now the ability for more poker content on TV, because basically when Black Friday happened, poker on TV, I mean, it didn't stop entirely, but in the US it basically did. And that's because those shows were being financed by poker stars and Full Tilt to advertise to Americans. And once they couldn't, the money wasn't there to run those shows. And so I think that once it's in enough states, there's enough money in creating televised poker content. And of course, all the, like Poker Go and Twitch and everything that wasn't around, back then so much. I think there'll be more poker content, more people paying for ads on poker content, and therefore more poker content, and hopefully then more interest in poker. But I do think, it's not going to be what it was in 2004, 2005. And I think it's going to be really important that the sites are careful with the way that they handle kind of the ecosystem, because it's not going to be a boom, like I said, like the early 2000s. It's going to be a mini boom, and we're going to have a lot of new people getting in. And if policies and features are set up such that they just get crushed when they show up and play, we lose our opportunity to get them interested, because if they have a bad experience. And so a lot of the things we've done at Run It Once Poker have been focused on making the recreational players' experience better, giving them more winning experiences, making them not feel hunted, things like that. And I think it's going to be really important that if I'm right and we get this mini boom, and it brings in some new players due to all the content, I think it's important that we, kind of don't let the ecosystem, crumble with I mean, like an example, which doesn't really, but the easiest example to give is like multi-entry tournaments, which I think, I'm not saying there can't be multi-entry tournaments, but I think you bring all these players in and you have a tournament with unlimited re-entries for 6-7 hours, just that the new players are going to get crushed too often. And so I think things like that, you just have to be a little bit careful so that the players have, the new players have a chance.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a fine line. I think, Party Poker, that they've done a pretty good job on the limited one reentry, and they do try to keep some freeze outs and whatnot. And that is a kind of argument within the industry on what to do. And it is tricky, live too, like some of these tournaments where Foxen's in 6 rebuys. At the same time, there's guys that are in 5, 6, 7, 4 rebuys that don't cash. So, it doesn't make the prize pool bigger, but it's, you just I think you got to find a compromise and something that makes sense and it's fair, and do a little bit of everything and give people the option and see what works. What is your 2021 outlook on with COVID? I know last time last time we did the podcast, I'm trying to figure it out. I thought it was like about a year ago. It might have been right before, right? Because you basically started.
I think it was
It was in January, so it was pre-COVID. So now COVID's happened. What have been some takeaways so far, and how has things been? Have you been able to get more done? Has it impacted you? It's kind of tough to talk about because obviously the world and so many things are shifted and messed up. But for you personally, and Run It Once personally, what has been sort of the benefits and also the downsides for you?
I mean, for me personally, it hasn't hit me nearly as hard as most of the world, because first of all, I live kind of, I live at my computer anyways. Used to living kind of, I have a family, but otherwise, I have a lot of experience living kind of an isolated life. And actually one thing that that the pandemic has taught me is that, like, I actually, this is off topic now, but it was harder than I thought it would be to empathize with, like, I didn't understand how hard it was for people to isolate, because it's not hard for me. Like, I'm built differently than a lot of people. And I think in talking to friends and family members and on social media, things like that, it kind of opened my eyes to how different, a lot of people are built. And it took me a while to understand just how hard it was on a lot of people. The isolation part, independently. But yeah, I feel very fortunate that, it hasn't been certainly, I mean, for a while it was a good thing for online poker. Now it's kind of gotten back to normal, but for most of the year 2020, it was, online poker was up in a big way, due to COVID. And, I play online poker, I have online poker businesses. So as far as, career wise, it was a positive. But obviously, it's a negative for the world, and it's still, there are still negatives too, like, I have a 2-year-old son, and a lot of his family hasn't seen him in over a year. And yeah, but basically, like, I'm thankful that it hasn't been as hard on me personally as most people. And I feel for everybody who doesn't have the luxury of working from home, doesn't have the luxury of, having, having businesses that can survive the pandemic. So yeah, as far as going forward for poker, I don't really have a good guess. I know that, live tournaments are coming back slowly. I know that they're going to want to, like, WSOP is going to want to run, as soon as it feels that it can, and feels that it should. But yeah, it's tough to say, because, like, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't know with the vaccine coming out, and I don't know what the curve is going to look like to where life is closer to back to normal. I would just be, purely guessing.
Yeah, for sure. And in the WSOP predictions, do you think, I've actually heard a bit of stuff recently, and I'm just not super. I haven't seen their feed, or if there's any, like, official announcements. Do you know anything about? Do you think there will be a WSOP in 2021?
I think there will be. I don't know anything about it, but I would imagine that there'll either be kind of a smaller scale one. My guess would be smaller scale one at a normal time, or they postpone it a little bit and kind of feel out how things are going, because I know some predictions say that things will be a lot closer to back to normal after the summer, but who knows? So I don't know what they're going to decide. If I were, I don't even understand all the factors. Like, I was about to say, if I were them, I would try to run it a little bit later in the year. But I don't even know, they might have pressure to run it during that, there are factors I don't know about in their business.
Yeah, it's weird, because there was, like, a period where it looked like the Rio wasn't going to be hosting anymore. Caesars, maybe it was going to be at Caesars or somewhere else. And now there's been a year, and there's been some more, I think, a shift in who ownership or management and different types of things. So it's going to be interesting to see where and when, and will it be moved, and how important is it the summertime? Obviously, Vegas summertime is not so appealing. It's very hot, but it's also,
very hot.
They're tourists, or have that are able to travel and go and take that time. But there's a lot of what ifs. Moneymaker was on the podcast recently, and I didn't know that the World Series didn't used to be in the summer. So I think in his year, at least, 2003 was in, like, March.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just assumed it was always summer forever, but I guess, at some point they made that shift, and it was before, so every year since I know, like 2008 or 9 or whatever, that's when it's been. So I don't know when that shift happened, but so obviously they pivoted before, and they could do that again. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, let's dive in. There's so many questions. We've got a lot of great questions. There's a $111 ticket we're going to be giving away courtesy of Party Poker. You can ask Phil a question, and I saw, here's his Twitter. You got what are the ways people can follow you, Phil? Where should they go get you? We got your Run It Once on YouTube channel. We got the Run It Once Twitch. We've got your personal Twitter, and the site, which is now, we just talked about Pads on Pads getting released right now. Pretty elaborate course. What else can people, where can they keep up with Phil?
I mean, frankly, Twitter is the best place. I'm on Instagram, but I don't post that much. Mostly just pictures of my son. And so yeah, Twitter's the place where if anything's going on, I let people know.
Very cool. All right. Well, we're gonna go and give people a shot, you guys, to not only win a ticket here, but also get a question direct to the man right here. So Phil, let's dive in. And I got my moderator, Ghost of M, my dude Marco, right off the bat. He's asking, is there a point where accepting a challenge from somebody becomes marketing for the lesser known person in the challenge? And what does he think about the etiquette of demanding a fee for that? So two-part question, but you are opening challenges. Let's kick that off as well, right? Isn't there some sort of open standing? Anyone can come to Vegas and play me?
Yeah. I'm stuck in Vegas for the time being, and I don't have any opponents right now here. So I said I'll play 200, 400 PLO with anybody that can get to either Nevada or New Jersey and play me on WSOP.com. I mean, I don't get anything from WSOP for saying that, but it's where I can play right now. So that is an open offer. Doesn't seem like there's any interest, so I might have to find something else to do. I mean, I think there are some people who would play me in PLO. I just think they don't feel like traveling from Europe to the US to do it.
Right.
But yeah, I want to play another challenge soon, and I'm kind of struggling to find action, and I might have to play like a half one or try to play a no limit one, even though I don't really know what I'm doing. But it's a good question from Ghost of M. It is like we talked about with Landon and Perkins. Landon's definitely building his brand in a big way from this challenge, I think, and doing a good job of it. I don't know if a fee. I don't know. Maybe it does make sense. Anything is possible. It's a negotiation for challenges, and they negotiated 9 big blinds per 100. I think one thing that could make sense is, like, let's say that I were playing a challenge on, Run-A-One's poker, and I wanted to, challenge Phil Hellmuth, and we played it on the Run-A-One software. I think that that brings a lot of exposure to the business, and I think he'd probably deserve some kind of fee or increased odds or something like that for that. I think when it's like a person-to-person thing and there's no site to promote and it's just promoting personal brand, it's really hard to put a value on that. And so I don't think a fee makes a ton of sense.
Very, very good question, and I think that's right. We got a question about Jamie Weidel saying, "Do you enjoy living in Canada? I know you balance Vancouver, Vegas. Give me a little pluses and minuses of those places."
Yeah, I mean, I love Vancouver. I think I don't know, Vegas is. I have some more friends in Vegas. I have a little bit of family in Vegas, and we have a much bigger house in Vegas and in Vancouver we're usually in a smaller, relatively small apartment. So the upside to Vegas is people and more space, but Vancouver is an amazing city. I think it's my favorite place I've lived. Just the combination of convenience that you could get in like a New York, but with a friendlier, cleaner, more welcoming environment. But you're in a city, but you're not far from beautiful nature. And I don't know. I like the only downside of Vancouver, as far as I know, or as far as I'm concerned, I guess, cost of living is pretty high, and then it rains quite a bit. But I don't really mind the rain anyway. So I love Vancouver. I would, if all other factors were the same, I'd pick Vancouver over Vegas.
And where would you say the hotbeds are in online poker in the world right now? It seems like it moves a bit. I remember Black Friday and a lot of people going to Mexico, Canada. Of course, like those are, pretty popular. Cabo, Montreal, Vancouver. Vancouver seems to be one of the hottest hubs. What are some other gems or cities that that some friends or people go to that kind of Playa del Carmen, you hear a lot? Like, where's some areas that you feel like are poker hubs for players that are playing online?
Yeah, I think Vancouver's been the place that a lot of people have like relocated to, whether it's part-time or full-time. That I know of, or at least people that I know. I think that for shorter trips, it's Mexico, Cabo, like you said, is a really popular place. But I don't really know too much. A lot of the players I'm friends with are they live in Vegas and they are rarely taking trips because a lot of them play live, or they already lived outside of the U.S. and they're still wherever they were.
Yeah, Yeah, it's if you could choose one place, forget about, I mean, city, I guess, in the world, like where would be your sort of like, forget family or anything, just like a cool city that you could do your, play poker and just be and do your business. Where would you like to live? Where would be the spot?
I mean, I think it would be Vancouver, but part of that's perhaps because I haven't been to enough places but Vancouver's of the places I've been, I think I'd pick Vancouver.
Vancouver. Wow, nice. That's good. That's good to be in the spot you want to be.
Yeah.
What is the hardest thing about being a successful poker player? We got Great Bluff Mary in the chat asking about that.
I think, well, the successful part is the easy part, but even as a successful poker player, you have long periods where you're not successful. And I think the hardest part is, staying motivated and focused during downswings, because, poker is unlike, a 9 to 5, where if you're in a bad mood and you're unfocused, you show up and clock in and you're going to take home the same paycheck most of the time. In poker, if you show up, you're depressed about losing, you're not sleeping, you're unfocused, you show up, you're going to lose more. And so I think that poker as a career, and this is probably true of, it's true of running a business perhaps, and it's true of like trading, other things where you're kind of not just paid a consistent salary. It's just the hardest part is keeping the motivation and focus during hard times.
Yeah, and do you think, is that something that's learned or earned? Is that just experience? And some people obviously are going to be a little better dealt characteristic or attributes to do that. What do you think is some suggestions you could give to people that could do better with that? Like what are some practices they could do to develop that?
Yeah, I do think that an element of it is kind of natural, and some people are luckier than others. I'm fortunate to be relatively even keeled. I don't really get very angry. I can usually snap back into a reasonably good mood pretty quickly if things are going poorly. But I think the best thing, there's a decent amount of content out there. Like I mentioned on Run It Once, so there's Elliott's course, and then also in our regular memberships, they're kind of standalone videos from other people, and there are videos on YouTube dealing with downswings, things like that. I think the best thing you can do is just have poker friends that you talk to, and it doesn't have to, your friend doesn't have to be a therapist or a mindset expert, but they just have to be somebody who can relate and who you can relate to, and you kind of have that person to. And this is true in all of life, but a lot of times when things are going poorly, it's easy for it to kind of spiral in your head and to think that it's just like a lot worse than it is. And once you get it out and can talk to somebody who can provide some perspective, or even just the perspective of hearing yourself say it out loud, can often help, I think, get your head back on straight.
For sure. I agree completely with that. We got a question right here about Hawaii. You were just in Hawaii?
Yeah, I was just in Hawaii. It was our first vacation since I can remember.
Plane thing, some video of a Honolulu flight. Did you see that where the engine blew out?
No.
Twitter was like trending on the thing, like it was pretty scary. Like the engine just like a horror movie, like blew up and like was on fire out the window, and the plane dropped and it was out of Honolulu. It was like yesterday or something. I just caught a little video of it. Anyway, so you weren't on that flight. You don't have to tell from that. I think everyone was okay, which is good.
Good. Wow.
Hawaii, you been there before? You said it was his first time, and how?
Second time, and it was really nice. Just went with a few friends, and we rented a house, and no, it was great with good friends, and it was not a lot of doing stuff. It's just a lot of hanging out, catching up, and relaxing, which, I mean, I was still doing work because that's just what I do. Mm-hmm. But it was good. And Spencer, my son, had a great time. It was his first time at a beach, well, that he can remember, or that he could do anything. So it was really fun.
Very, very nice. Yeah, it's good to you got to take a little downtime. It sounds like a nice place to go. How's COVID over there? Were people wearing masks? Is it kind of relaxed, or was it very strict stuff?
My understanding is that they have a better handle on it than a lot of the U.S. I think it's a little bit easier to control it on an island if you do a good job of it. But yeah, there's still kind of same restrictions in place. Not on a beach, but restaurants, like we went out to dinner twice, I think, and very strict. You take a COVID test before you go, before they let you in to Hawaii. So you have to take a test within 72 hours, and then you land and you fill out a health form and all this stuff, and they take your temperature. And I don't know, I guess they send you back I don't know what they do actually, if you show up and you have a fever.
Yeah,
but
that's a long flight home to send back. Maybe
yeah,
an area they can let you just sort of mellow at. But
yeah,
that's, I guess you'd want to go home probably at that point though, if you just had to stay in like a room in Hawaii for 2 weeks. But
yeah.
All right, we got one on the tee for you here from Y Ruts. I don't know if this is a plant or not, but why should I play at Run It Once Poker, Phil? Tell the people what they need to know about Run It Once.
Run It Once Poker, I think at this point, I'm really proud. I think has the best kind of user experience software wise. It's really smooth, fun, effortless to play on, and we have a lot of policies and features in place that are, depending on what kind of player you are. If you're a recreational player, I think you definitely should. It's we kind of protect recreational players from being hunted, from there being unfair advantages for pros, and so like level playing field is big for us, and it's a fun playing experience. So like you're going to show up, join a game, be sat on a table. There's no table or seat selection, so you'll just be given a table, and we have a system called table alias system. So on that table you're given a name, but your opponents don't have history on you before then.
Oh, you're actually given like a random screen name or like a number or something?
Yep. You're given a random name per
name.
each table.
You actually pick the player's like username at the table?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that, because I played before. I streamed actually a bit. I remember back when you launched, and I did enjoy it. I like the software and it was nice, but that's a pretty cool feature. I don't remember that. So.
Yeah, and so we have for that reason, you're not going to get hunted as a recreational player in the same way, and they don't have a database of statistics on you because they don't know who you are. And if you're a pro, there is kind of the benefit of doing things this way is that recreational players have a good time and they stay at the site longer, play more often. And so the games, while a lot of pros think, oh, well, I can't use my 4,000 hands on this guy, like I'm losing my edge. Right. The fact of the matter is, in the short term, that's true, but in the long term, and even in the short term, like it means there are more recreational players at the table on average, because they're staying longer, they're enjoying their time, and their deposits last longer. We only have cash games and sit and goes right now, but the sit and goes are very, very cool. I think we have something called Sit and Go Select, where you can choose to play a lottery style sit and go, like commonly known as spin and goes, or just traditional one where you get just predictable payouts, and you're combined into the same player pool. So you can actually be playing a fixed prize structure sit and go, while your opponents are playing something like a spin and go. And so for players that don't want the added variance, they get that option. They can still play with the players that do. And it's actually, our team did a really good job. It's beautiful and really fun to play.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's that's good to hear. And I know it's, congrats again. I know what a grind it is to get off the ground and have it moving and forward. And it's got to feel pretty good, because it's a big undertaking. I think we spoke last time about, it's sort of a loaded question, but if you could click a button, say, I'm Phil, and here's my life and what I'm doing, and I'm going to take this project on, and I'm going to do a good thing for poker and make a good place for people to play, and do my, which obviously it's a business. You're trying to make money, but you're also trying to put a great product for people. Would you have done it over, how much work and effort and sweat, tears, is that, could you even answer that? Or is just you've gained so much learning and growth as a person along the way too? Or what would be your sort of, 50,000 on what's happened so far?
It's a good question. I think it's been, I think if I were to speak, purely financially, I would not have done it again, but I have gained so much. I've learned so much, and we still are in a position. We still have a big uphill battle, but we're still in a position to kind of achieve my dream, which is to, have some control over over the online poker industry and point it in a direction that I think is best for online poker and best for the players. And so I think that, yeah, if you're to take it purely from a financial perspective, it has not been like my EV from this point compared to everything I've done and put in is not great. But you know, we're still in there fighting, and I still have you know, a lot of hope for the future. And I'm very kind of proud of what we've accomplished, and I'm excited and like what I've learned along the way.
Yeah, it's that's a great answer. I think that, yeah, it's one of those things, right? Like, you can't really look at stuff like that, and it sounds like, you know, it's just sometimes it's better if you just decide, like, all right, well, if you had known what you know, maybe you wouldn't have done it, but it actually is net
Yeah.
You can say that about a lot of things. So I think that's that's good to hear, and to do that. I gotta ask you about I gotta ask you about Top Shot. I gotta ask you about sports cards. Are you catching any of this bug? NFTs? Like, what's your thought on this space and the non-fungible tokens and you know, all this stuff? What do you think? Are you hearing this? Do you even have time to look at this? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm hearing it. I mean, a lot of people who I respect really believe in it, and so if I had to purely guess, then it seems like a good space to get into.
Right.
But my own, I don't know, my policy is just like, if I don't have, unless someone that I know super well is and just like is highly advising me to invest in something. Basically, if I don't have time to learn about it in any kind of reasonable way, I just kind of sit on the sidelines for the most part. And so I don't have. I think it's better to do that than just kind of blindly get in there. Right. It might be better to, you know, like, there are these things that come along that if you get in at the right time, it's a huge opportunity. And, you know, maybe I miss out on some of those because I don't have the time to get to a level of understanding that I'm comfortable with. But obviously for all the great opportunities, there are a lot of ones that go very poorly. So I don't know. It seems like, based on what people are saying, and like I said, people I respect, it seems like a great space to be in. I don't have the time to really learn about it and have an informed opinion.
Yeah, it's it's true. It is hard, right? Because there's like a FOMO aspect of it, or you see this or that, but it kind of takes like the right one of your core guys or people to do it and to tell you and make you feel comfortable to take that leap, because it is rabbit holes, a lot of the stuff too. Like, even if it's good, it's like, how good really is it, and where does that affect your other areas of life? So those are definitely you know, I think they're fun, but it's there's only so much time for hobbies and to you know, to do different type of things. Say, for sure, with having a family, we're not 18, 21-year-olds in college, is kind of, you know, the next thing, and looking for more what the next deal is. I want to ask you about your time at University of Wisconsin. So you came from the East Coast. Now, how was it to go from the East Coast to Wisconsin and Midwest sort of area? And you studied, what was your interest in philosophy? Give me kind of that decision to go to Wisconsin and how that was your time there.
I mean, all the decisions kind of happened because I didn't care that much. So I wasn't that excited about college. I remember my mom actually filled out a bunch of college applications because I was just like, I don't really feel like doing this. So Wisconsin was one of the ones that I applied to and got in. I visited a handful of them, and actually went there just mainly because I had a friend whose cousin went there and absolutely loved it. And I was like, all right, that makes sense. And I liked the visit. I loved Wisconsin. Obviously, weather-wise, it can be not great. It gets super, super cold during the winter, but I definitely really like the Midwestern vibe, and very friendly people. And I met a lot of really, really, really great people that I'm, you know, friends to this day with. And philosophy I just got into because I showed up not really with a focus and just took a bunch of classes, and philosophy was the first class I took that I really enjoyed. And so that was basically it. I wasn't thinking so much about the future and what I would do with a philosophy degree, which I didn't end up getting. But I just kind of, I've always been able to, I've always really, like, I've always learned a lot about subjects that I enjoy, and I've always struggled to learn anything about a subject that I don't enjoy. So I've kind of let my interests drive what I focus on, rather than like, oh, I know that this major would get me a good job, so I'm going to focus on that, even though I don't like it. Like that, I can't really make myself do that.
Right. Well, I was putting on a T for you because I thought maybe the other Phil from Wisconsin, he would won the World Series main event in 1989. Went to Madison, went there. Your name's Phil Poker. Did you know Phil Hellmuth? Did you know like of this guy when you were going to college? Did you know he went there? Does he have a statue at Madison? What's going on?
No, I didn't catch a statue of him. No, I didn't really follow poker until the moneymaker boom. So that was actually like the end of my freshman year, the moneymaker boom. So I did not know. Yeah, I don't think I knew who Phil Hellmuth was until my second year of college, and I don't think I learned that he went to Madison until several years later, or was from Madison until several years later. So that it would be I could pretend that was my motivation, but yeah, no.
We can't stamp that. Fair enough. I got a question here from Pappy Winkle. What do you think the odds are for you to win that challenge? I think you said like 1 or 2%, but he was asking what the odds were at that point. He thought he was trying to get a bet down at 30 to 1 or something. Was there anyone that bet you to win at that point? Do you know of any bets like that? Do you know what the current market was at that moment?
I think they took the market down. I believe that Mike McDonald said in an interview that they had taken it down, but they would have put the line at like 35 to 1. And I thought that my chances were better than that because I thought I had an edge, which obviously nobody did at that point because I had just lost 45 buy-ins. But I wasn't super confident. So maybe I thought I was like 20 to 1.
Wow. So but when you were 1 or 2%, you're saying you're saying the odds to win, like to
yeah, to win. I think that like now that if they would have put it at 35 to 1, then I think 1 or 2% is probably wrong. I was just throwing in a guess. But I think if they were putting it 35 to 1, that was probably assuming I was losing at like 10, 12 big blinds per 100 or something. And if I think I'm break even or winning, then it maybe is closer to 15 or 20 to 1. So like, maybe as high as 5-7%.
Right. Yeah. Pretty incredible. We did cover that, guys. If you want to listen at the beginning, we spent a fair amount of time on Heads Up, which I think it's super interesting. And there's so many levels and dynamics, especially with the bets and the strategy and all that. So we definitely, we did cover that. I saw, let's see. Oh yeah. Question about disconnecting. Give me you've played so much online poker. Do you have any crazy stories about disconnects or like a misclick or, something, a remote drops, and you do? Are there any stories from your high stakes days that are just crazy that you just like still can't believe happened? How unlucky or crazy, good or bad, actually? Maybe a misclick good.
Yeah, there's the main two stories pop into my head. One was from back in the day online. I was playing, it was 100, 200 heads up no limit against Daniel Alai. This was 2005, 2006 maybe, and I'd played all day. It was really late. It was like 1 a.m. and I'd been playing all day. And we get into this pot where I think he 3-bets, I call, he bets flop. I raise with I had a straight flush draw. I don't remember the exact board. But I raised, to call it off. And he disconnected and get the 90-second disconnection time bank starts counting down. And I was like, oh, well, I really have to pee. So I have 90 seconds, so I'll just go. I wasn't thinking. So I just go to the bathroom. And obviously, he came back before his 90-second time. He reconnected and shoved while I was in the bathroom. And I timed out before I got back and folded my hand.
Wow.
Because I was just like, I saw the 90 seconds. I was really tired. I was like, oh, I have 90 seconds. Got to go. And wasn't thinking. And then there's a hand I played. This is maybe harder to follow because it's a game that is not commonly played. But there's a hand I played recently, like a few years ago, against Jungle Man live. And we were playing pot limit, double draw, high. So it's 5-card draw, but you get 2 draws.
Okay.
And long story short is there's a spot where like he's representing trips and I have a flush draw, and there's one draw to come, and I was like, I don't know if I believe him. Maybe I do, but I have some outs if not. So like he pots, and I shove for like barely any more, 30% more, thinking like, okay, well, if he doesn't have trips, then he's just going to fold. And if he does, I have outs.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up having trips and folding. And I was so confused until I realized that actually all the draws were done. I thought there was one more draw, and I was semi-bluffing, but I was just pure bluffing river because there were no more draws to come, and he just didn't believe I would bluff like that, so he just snap folded trips. But so that was a positive mental misclick. Yeah.
Wow. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that cost you ever in the future? Did you find yourself like, oh, this, or did you like, oh, that maybe this is a great line, like I'm gonna do this more often, or that was just kind of did you show your hand or no?
No, I didn't.
Not right. Yeah, we got that love. You guys aren't just over hand.
Yeah. We talked about it. I mean, I told him about it later because it was so funny that the way it happened. But no, I don't think it cost me later. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't have made the play if I understood where we were at in the hand.
Right. Yeah, that just wouldn't have gone down that way. So why do you prefer PLO? Give me this is actually, I love this question from Marcelo Chalet, MVP Chalet, asking about this. How did you get so deep into PLO versus Hold'em? What was the decision in that point in time where you just decided that you were going to be the PLO guy?
The reason it happened is, I mean, Hold'em was my only game, and I was playing nosebleeds on full tilt, and the action kind of dried up, and the action all moved to PLO. I was like, well, there's a lot of action here, so I want to learn how to play it. And it just so happened that, over time, I was better at PLO than No Limit. I don't know exactly why. I think whatever about my natural abilities lend itself a little bit more to PLO than No Limit Hold'em. And I've just been there ever since as a result. And I kind of got further and further away. Like every year that passed that I wasn't playing No Limit, the players were getting better and I was getting worse. And so I've never had a great reason to hop back in. So that's kind of why, but I'm interested in No Limit, especially watching all these No Limit challenges recently.
Yeah, it's and is how big of an undertaking you think that would be? Like, would you literally just go and get Pat's course, the new course, and just rip through it and just get in the MTT, or what would be your approach if you wanted? Well, I guess, or cash game. What would you do if you wanted to get into No Limit Hold'em? What would be your steps to really get caught up onto?
That's a good question. Yeah, it depends on the format. I think if it was MTTs, I would definitely finish that course as first priority, and then I need to learn about what tools are out there, because there are a lot of like, I also find solvers tedious, and like the learning curve and setting up everything. But there are a lot of tools now that are kind of like solver add-ons. And actually we have at Run Once, we have Vision, which right now is just PLO, but it's basically taking solver outputs and putting them into a much easier to digest format where you don't have to run anything yourself. It's already run for you. And there are a lot of tools like that for No Limit. And so I would probably, go searching for one that doesn't make me put in the legwork of setting up solves. But then really just playing. I learn a lot by playing and reviewing. And so I would want to get in there pretty early and start putting in hands, even though I'll probably be losing at the start.
Yeah, it's good advice. Do you think there's a PLO, like a PLO tournament, like where do you think that is in its life? Because I feel like the ante, PLO generally doesn't have antes in tournaments, although they've done that some now. Is it just because the game's already so violent, like that there hasn't been? And do you think that could be something that would make it more appealing to people to do like live PLO tournaments?
Yeah,
or kick an ante at the end or something, or like after day 2 or some. What would be your what is the Phil Galfond dream PLO multi-table tournament look like to make it? You think it would just be best for the masses, not necessarily best for you? Maybe gamble, put a little more gamble, or because it does get a little. There's times where it can get dry, or when there's no ante and you got to be super tight in the ICM and the bubble and that. So give me your PLO dream formula.
Yeah. So Poker Go and Party Poker have good formats I've seen in PLO tournaments where there's an ante, but it doesn't count towards the pot pre-flop or ever. I'm not sure. how they each do it. But basically, like, you know, it's 500 1K blinds with 1,000 ante, but you can still only raise to what you could if there was no ante. And I think that works really well for driving action because, like you said, it can get a little dry. Honestly, for a long time, I thought that PLO just didn't lend itself well to tournaments because what happens is when you get to the bubble or you get to a final table and like there's so much ICM pressure and so little pre-flop edge to be had because like you're always 40% with any reasonable hand that it gets kind of silly to play because it's just like if you're the big stack, raise every hand, and if you're like, you know, one of the 5 stacks that are vying for the next, you know, trying to ladder up, you just fold everything. And so I thought it was not a great game for that reason, but short deck is similar in terms of pre-flop equities, and there have been a lot of short, like those tournaments have grown in popularity, specifically live and from the Triton series. And it seems to be a reasonably good, like people seem to like that as a format. So maybe there's more hope for PLO tournaments than I realized, and maybe the ICM spots are more nuanced than I realize. And I mean, I love playing PLO. I love playing tournaments. I think it is kind of, I think people get discouraged in PLO tournaments because there's so many hands you just have to go all in with, and then you're flipping always. But I mean, that's true in No Limit Hold'em too, in a different sense. Like if you get queens versus kings with 30 big blinds, you know, the money goes in, and it's an 80-20, but it's kind of a flip because it would have gone in the other way. But I think in Hold'em, like you feel like you have a little more control. And you do a little bit to an extent, but I think psychologically PLO tournaments can be upsetting for people to play play all those hours, and then you just flop top set and they have a wrap and you're flipping, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's and what it's interesting. What do you think the greatest, what's the next best besides PLO? You see the short decks come in play now. PLO, Hold'em, what are other good tournament games? You want to deuce to 7. That seems like the most fun. I keep saying I'm going to play one, even if it's a smaller one, just at WSOP. I just never have, whether it's whatever. For whatever reason, I haven't had a chance. Maybe once I just didn't do it and I was like, I was free, or I wasn't a no limit event. I wanted to get in it, but that seems like one of the purest games too. Is that maybe the most fun tournament to play, or like for like the non, like not like Raz or Stud or something like? Is the deuce to 7 triple draw or no limit the most fun?
No limit single draw is the purest form of poker, in that there's a lot of just, does he have it or does he not have it? I think it is a good tournament game, but I don't find it as fun as Hold'em or PLO because there's a lot less hand reading. Like, yeah, if you're great at live tells, it's the perfect game for you. But there are just a lot of spots where, you know, they draw one and they either paired or they didn't, and then they bet and you have to guess. Whereas in Hold'em, they take a pre-flop action, they take a flop action, maybe multiple flop actions, they take a turn action, and by the river, you have a lot more information to kind of deduce what they have. And I find that the most fun part of poker is figuring out what story they're trying to tell, and perhaps, you know, perhaps where they went wrong in telling that story. And you don't really have that in single draw because there's no story to tell. I draw one, I either paired or I didn't. Doesn't matter what I did on a previous street. I paired or I didn't, and now I bet. So there's less hand reading. So I don't find it as fun personally, but I do think it's a good tournament game because equities don't run close. Like, you can be dead pre-flop, which makes for like a lot of, you know, high pressure click back kind of situations.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah, for sure. We got another question about your support coach here, Farah. How is it? How does she help with you mentally? What's her role? And I've played actually some high stakes with her a bit in what was it, Encore, and she can hold her own. It's pretty amazing that she's playing the highest level, the biggest stakes. And so I think we were playing 200, 400, or 300, 600, and she actually took a sick beat to my buddy who I brought. I remember, like, I think they ran it twice. She had like queens to A7 off for like pretty big pot, and I think she lost both runs, and it was like she wasn't even like, oh, how unlucky am I, or like even like rolling the eyes. She just like took it and was like, it was just like, so she's a tough cookie. I could tell she knows how to hold herself and carry herself, and she understands some variance. But there's a question about her. Give me how is that having her in your life in terms of like support with poker, and that she actually knows how to play poker? Is that nice or not nice? Because I hear both, depending, like when it's
Yeah.
yeah, give me that. How's that with her?
Yeah, she's very tough, and she kind of had that naturally. It wasn't something she learned from years of beats, like I have. No, it's generally a good thing. I think the poker's a hard thing to understand for a lot of people, and I think it's important to have a partner. They don't have to know how to play poker, but I think it's really helpful when they at least understand, what it's like to like, it's really hard to have a partner who doesn't understand, like, oh, you've been losing for 5 days, you must be bad, or who doesn't understand something like, what was I going to say? Well, I lost my train of thought. But who doesn't understand, like, hey, I'm really sorry. I know we had plans, but this is like a once in a year game, and I have to go play it.
Right.
Those are things that for a lot of people are hard to understand. So it's really helpful to have a partner who understands those things. And I mean, Farah's extremely supportive and awesome for a whole bunch of reasons. But I'm very lucky to have her, both personally and career wise.
Yeah, that's cool. And how is that with? Has she been able to play some poker? Is she getting her, with the COVID, and has she been able? Have you guys found a balance where you can't go play live really, or you weren't? I guess now actually some games are opening back up. People are playing a bit now. So what? I guess tell me more. My question more is what's going on in the current Vegas landscape with some of the games? Or is there games going a bit?
Games are going a little bit. That's one area where she hasn't had as much balance as I know she would like. She misses playing. She used to play a lot, and the combination of COVID and being a mother has made it really hard. Both because like her schedule is different, and live games generally go a little bit later. But also she's found it, the couple of times she has played, and this was before the pandemic. I don't know. She felt kind of anxious being away from our son, and so that's something that she would like to get back to, I know. And like online poker doesn't do it for her. She wants to play live, but I think probably if whenever he gets into preschool, which I don't know exactly when that'll be, I think she'll be able to get back to it in a bigger way, and I'm looking forward to that for her. As far as I think that the games that she plays in, I've started to run occasionally and rarely. And then the games that I would play in also have started to run occasionally and rarely, like, I don't know, maybe a handful of times a month. So it seems to be coming back a little bit. I've been focused on online, and actually like getting back to playing live full ring mixed games. Like I've been doing nothing but heads up PLO for over a year. And I actually think it would take a while to like get my mind back into that. So I'm pretty focused on online if I can find action. If I can't find action, I don't know what happens. But yeah.
Do you find that shift is hard though? Do you feel like you're playing too many hands, or just like not you obviously know two, heads up, 6-handed, 9-handed like ranges and what you're supposed to do, but do you find that in practice that, oh, I'm in every hand and I'm playing, it's like it's almost slow 6-handed or something, or 7-handed, and you're playing, you're like, all right, I got Jack 10 off and or whatever, or I guess PLO, you're playing PLO, like a modest PLO hand where the book says probably not an open, but you're just flicking open the pips up a couple. Do you find yourself like struggling with that after intensity?
Definitely. Yeah. Like going from playing every hand to, especially going from online to live where, hands are dealt so much more slowly, and having to not play a hand. And then also you're playing again, like going from playing heads up against world-class competition to games where you expect to have a big edge. Like it's really easy to play way too loose. And that's what I end up doing. If I'm not really focused. And actually, I mean, that's a problem for me live, no matter what. It is playing too loose in a lot of games, especially the games that I feel really confident in. Like PLO. And so I think that would be a hard adjustment. And even going back, even playing online 6-max right now, I think I would struggle a little bit in terms of maybe not playing too many hands pre-flop, but fighting a little too hard post-flop because of the ranges I'm used to having and being up against. So yeah, I think it does take some adjustment for sure.
Definitely. It's also bouncing between PLO and Hold'em as well. I think that's tricky. I mean, at least for me, but similar where you're just changing formats, variations. That's just sort of something you got to calibrate. How are you doing with family life? Asked Senya. We talked about this balance. How do you have like check-ins with once a week, nightly? Do you do any kind of sheets or preparation to keep your balance in order? Because that's something I try to give myself like a score. And sometimes I'm just like, family takes precedent. It's at the end of the day, like money, whatever, you want to build stuff, do things, but how do you hold yourself accountable to make sure you are doing that? Is it we talked a bit about it. You literally just have hard stop and start times. That's sort of like your way of doing it.
That's my way of doing it. Yeah. And I think where I struggle sometimes is, in my family time, making sure that I'm focused on the family, because it's easy if I've been playing a challenge to like be thinking about hands or even like reviewing hands on my phone. And it's easy to have work emails pop up and things like that. And so that's the area that I need to like where I can slip. And I don't know, I tend to just try to hold myself accountable. I talk to Elliot about it sometimes, but yeah, that's basically it. I don't have a system so much.
For sure. Okay. And yeah, we got Ready Set Go saying, hello Phil, if you're the best PLO player, who do you consider second? Give me a handful of names that are in the top echelon right now currently. Venividi, we know you just were battling with Epic Challenge, and who are some other, maybe some people haven't heard about? Well, give us a little bit of a at the top, what's going on in the PLO world. And are heads up games still happening like on the sites a lot? Like, are there games going and high stakes online really? Because the tournaments seem to be booming in general, but cash games online, it's gotten a little bit more scarce, it seems.
Yeah, the high heads up specifically has happened more in the last few years than the few years prior. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but yeah, I don't think I'm number one in PLO right now. I'd like to try to get there, but I haven't done that yet. I think I certainly haven't proven it. I think the guys that are, and there are a handful of these guys I haven't really played, but I think the best right now are probably, or the people I'd be nervous about playing, would be like Very Sweet, Sauce, Am So Good, Ben 86, and I guess that, and then I mean like Venividi and Action Freak are both very good, but I played against them. But yeah, those are the ones that come to mind. I think, Linus. I mean, he's more of a no limit player, but he plays the high stakes PLO at a high level as well. But there are also, especially being in the US the last, I don't know how many months, 8 months. I'm not like, I was only over the last few years, like the poker I did play was challenges, almost only challenges. I played a little bit of poker, like a little bit of prep on stars, like heads up Zoom, but I haven't played with a lot of these guys too much because I've just focused on individual opponents. So I don't really know. I'm just kind of going off what other people seem to think.
Right. Okay. Let's take a few more here. I know we've done a lot. We've answered a lot of questions, guys, and we're going to get this giveaway for $111. I appreciate all the engagement, all the interaction, and man, a lot of questions. I think and Phil's just one of those guys. He's always got an invite. Hopefully we'll do check-ins at least once a year. I would love to have him on, and we can, if he sees some of these, he can, he'll take a look and maybe get to a few. But there's a lot. So again, great for that. Appreciate that. But we're just gonna choose a few more. I saw a lot of good ones. I don't know if you've seen any of these. If anything you see here jumps out as well. But I've seen a lot of preparation questions. What about warming up before you play? There seems to be a lot of people asking your preparation. And I know personally with the child and with running and being busy, it doesn't necessarily, like in Dream World, you hit the cold plunge, eat your chicken and veggies and be on time, the first one there, and do your meditation. But what's the reality? What is the Phil Galfond way of being before he plays online or live? I guess give me a dream world and what's the reality? Like they show like the Twitter, the Instagram picture, everyone's dialed up and looking good, and then reality, like that deal. Give me like what your ideal is and what really happens.
Yeah, I think ideal is a pretty, like, ideal is, in your morning you do like a light workout and you don't take on too much hard work, focus work. And then I do some kind of meditation or like Elliot Rowe, audio, and then get going. And that's ideal. I do an okay job of that during the challenges. Specifically the Chance challenge, I started to do a better job of that because we started at 10:30 a.m. and I would wake up at 6. So 6 to 7 sometimes. And so once I decided I wasn't going to do hard work in the morning, I had a lot of time. And so I was able to kind of reach close to the ideal. When I normally play, I don't know, like when I play live, I basically don't do anything, and I should, but I don't want to, I don't know, like doing like a Elliott audio before you get in the car and drive to the casino is like feels too far removed, but it's uncomfortable to just like find an isolated spot in a casino and do it. So I tend to not do a great job of it when I play live, kind of any of that. And also with the nature of live cash, sometimes you find out a game's running and you just have to go. Like you don't know that it's going to run. Then you hear that there's a game and you just go. So it's hard to do it. So when I play live, I don't do a lot of that. When I play online, I've only recently kind of gotten into a good routine, but for most of my life, I did not have any pregame routine.
Makes sense. Give me a leak that you filled. Like, what was there ever? What would you say is the biggest sort of leak / realization, whether talking to a friend or solver, or just from trial and error? What's something you were doing in your game that you think really shifted from taking you to a new level? Was there something significant that stands out, where a small blind play or bet sizing? Like, what was sort of an aha moment in poker for you, if there is any?
There are a bunch. It's hard to go. I'm going to do one more that's more recent because I just can't remember all the ones on the way back. But I think a realization that I had that, that I could argue is part of the reason that I made a comeback against Venny is during that break, the shift was I went from trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with my range, like facing a river bet, like, oh, am I in the top X% of my range to call here, or am I not? I shifted from that to hand reading. And when you're just trying to defend, 60% of your range, you're assuming that your opponent plays perfectly, or that you can't do better than that by hand reading. But one thing that I think is a huge skill in poker, and one that I've been strong at for a long time, is figuring out, based on all their actions throughout the hand, whether they're going to be over bluffing or under bluffing. And I think that it's important to keep in mind, like, oh, I'm like at the top 20% of my range. So even though I don't believe him, or sorry, even though I really believe him, like this is too good to fold, I have to give him some credit and call this hand. It's important to have that in mind for so you don't make too many really extreme plays against good players. But yeah, I think that if you're just trying to defend exactly appropriately, you're kind of turning off a skill,
right?
In a sense, and that's what I was trying to do, and what I changed. The main thing I changed in that time.
Very interesting. Okay, last question here for now, at least. Again, I'm like just a lot. We've seen a lot, so we'll take this one. Sky is just a positive. Actually, shout out to Kevin O'Donnell, who did say that he has to play 100 heads up for PLO double or nothing for a year subscription. No answer. I think he's scared. So I don't know if you know Kevin well or not, O'Donnell, but having a go there. That's my buddy. I don't know if you know him.
I guess I must have been scared. I don't. Yeah.
Didn't want to risk that. Didn't want to risk the the subscription. I like that. That's a creative way. Built in some EV and kind of a fun one. That could be an interesting business model. But last one here, I think many of us can agree that you are most likely the most likable poker player in the community. That's a strong praise there from Savage. Look at Savage. His name's Savage Poker, but he's a sweetheart, giving compliments out there. What do you think is the defining moment in your career that made people look at you this way? So, again, he's trying to take you out of your humble school, tell you, saying you're the most likable guy. Let's just assume that's true. What are things you think that was a moment where people sort of got to know Phil, or think that, wow, Phil's a good guy. He's not just a great poker player and savage crusher, but he's a good guy and a likable guy. Was there anything that stands out, like an interview, a moment, a winning, a this?
I think what stands out to me, thank you, Savage. It's a very kind thing to say. I think what stands out to me is a really long time ago, I did a well on 2+2, which is where it's basically an AMA. And this was, I don't know how long ago, like 2008 or something, 2007, I don't know. And basically just I answered a ton of questions, and I answered them very in depth, and I was very open. And I think that 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 was how a lot of the 2+2 community got to know me pretty well. And so that stands out to me as, I mean, obviously the 2+2 community is not the, the entirety of the poker community, but it's a big part of it, and actually was probably a bigger part at that point than it is now, but it's still a big part. So that stands out to me as like a way that people got to know me at that point. And I don't know, I think, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I think that was kind of the biggest get to know me moment.
Well, look at people want to know you. People want to talk to you. There's a lot of questions. Again, we did do our best. We answered a fair amount, and we covered a lot today in this podcast. So let's do this giveaway. It's a $111 ticket, courtesy of Party Poker. We're gonna go ahead and copy this. It'll be of Party Poker, Phil, and myself. We're gonna go ahead and plug this in. I'll give you the final RNG. And actually, speaking of RNG, we'll just load this. Let me get this loaded up. But while I hear my son crying, actually. At the moment, and I was actually just looking at Top Shot. I've been a little obsessed with Top Shot. I had a big fantasy score this weekend too. I think I mentioned you before the stream. So
yeah,
I'm like,
congrats, yeah.
Yeah, it's
you're doing it all.
I'm in rabbit holes, man. I hit a fantasy. I'm buying top moments like a fit. Like it's so crazy the Top Shot stuff. I don't know. Have you even seen the site? Like, have you seen how it's presented and stuff? Pretty wild.
I don't think I've seen the site. I've seen I've seen individual, like I've clicked on links to moments, but I haven't explored further than that.
Yeah, so like I mean, I'm just like, so I've ended up going a little nuts. I think I have like 40 moments, but like, I just know I have a bit of a problem. I'm buying like Caruso. Like, for example, I bought this I think for like 1,500 yesterday. It's just, Caruso, because who can't relate to this guy? Like the guy in the Lakers, he's got like the no hair. He's a white guy. He's just crushing it in there, and he's like probably like an average NBA player. I don't know, but he's like buying a dunk of his for 1,500, or over here there's whatever. It's just crazy. Like they're doing it like limited edition out of 15,000, out of 300. Like, there's different plays. Like this one has gone up a lot. It's just kind of like a wild deal. I think it could actually catch on, but there's little things to it. Now it's kind of sick because you see the prices people got in. Like,
yeah.
Like look at this. This guy bought it for $24. I bought it for $1,700. So like a little bit fishy, but at the same time, if this play is like 30. I think it's like 30 or 3,800. Like it's gone up like $1,300 or something. Like they say the minimum sale currently, and you can sell. But
okay,
I've seen a few guys go nuts on it that have bought or in a lot. Moneymaker's actually gotten really into it, and he just sold one for like 20-something thousand yesterday. Like he bought a lot. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. This could be someone's holding the bag. It's a high stakes game of hot potato, kind of, right? Like,
well, yeah, that's the major question is if it's here to stay or it's a bubble. And you could still, even if it's a bubble, you could get in at the right time and out at the right time. But if it's here to stay, then any time right now is the right time. So, but I have no knowledge to make a guess, which is the case.
For sure. And I just got to put a subtle brag on here. I did. So I won my first ever fantasy tournament. There was 555 entrants, took first for 20K. And the sick one was I got a second in a 1,300 person one. On the last playoff, I had 1 and 2 in there. And then because how they finished 1 and 2, I dropped from 526 to 516. And this guy, the other guy had won, we would have both dropped. But
okay.
So like I actually lost 25 G's on that finish. I didn't even know it could happen. I was like, oh, I got 1 and 2. What could go wrong? You know, and then the thing just shot down. But anyway, so that's that's some of my bad habits. Do you play daily at all or Top Shot?
No, I my bad habit is poker.
Okay. Well, it's a good. Seems like it's been a pretty good habit for you.
So, so far.
Yeah, it's been so far.
Sometimes.
Let's do this contest here. I think I loaded up. We're gonna download. I think setting records. Phil's got engagement. What do you guys expect? It's Phil Galfond. We've got a lot of retweets, a lot of people eligible for this win. So Phil, you tell me when someone's winning this ticket, and I'm gonna let you go. Play your son, do your tea break, coffee, whatever you do during the day. I feel like we went over the allotted time, but I feel you're just one of those guys. It's hard to quit, so I had to.
It's hard to quit. You too.
I'm proud of myself to actually not make you say, "Hey, one more." So I did at least self put that out there. So go ahead, you tell me when to choose it, and we'll wrap up this edition, second part of the pod.
All right, let's go for it. Go.
There, you felt it. We're rolling it. This is nice. $111. That's not nothing. I mean, these days,
yeah,
go a long way. This guy named Adders 2, very, very nice. His Adders, not 1, but Adders 2. This was our second podcast. He's got 7 people. He's retweeting. He's giving love out there. He's following the directions, doing things, and he's got an $111 ticket. That's pretty nice from Party Man. What do you think? 111? People have spun up from less.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Much
less.
Yeah, let's. What was your online bankroll? Are you one of those 1 deposit or free roll guys? What was your story?
Yeah, I was 2 deposit. I deposited 50 and I lost it, and I deposited either 50 or another 100, and that was it.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. So that I think, it's similar. Like my buddy in the sports card world, Jason Kuntz, who he's flipped up like 30 plus million or more of inventory from nothing, from card shows. Daniel Lai, you mentioned, I think his name earlier. He was actually playing a game with my buddy the other day, randomly in some mixed game. That guy's just around. He's in action. He's doing stuff. But they start with cards. The same thing, if you really think about it in poker, the best part is the majority of people that are around from our generation that are playing or involved, like if they assuming they're not staked or they have some money and they're whatever, like you basically parlayed from almost nothing, right? You basically came from, like, we didn't start with 100 grand or 50 grand or 10 grand. Like it was like basically we all, for the most part, you start where you do free rolls or deposit 25, 50, this and that, or whatever. So it's kind of crazy to think like that sometimes, even like in a bad moment or a bad swing, when you really look at the whole situation. Essentially we are building from nothing, which is kind of fun and to think about. So it's good to know that you're from that same thing.
Yeah.
Come in there's a few guys, right, that just pop in and have money and whatever. And
yeah, but it's very few, especially, our age, our generation. Yeah. Most of us were, $50.
Yeah, it's exactly. I started on Party and I remember very, very well like that whole thing and the software. I loved Party Poker software back in the day.
Me too. I started on Party too. Yeah.
I thought it was like the greatest thing. I just loved it, the way it looked and felt. Just looking now where stuff's at versus then, it's pretty amazing. So, well, Phil, man, I appreciate it. Say hi to Farah and your son Spencer. I'm sure our kids will be playing on a future poker stop somewhere.
Yeah.
And they'll be playing some games together, whether it's poker or whatever else. It'll be fun. And I know they're not maybe 4 or 5 months apart. When was he? November or December of 19?
New Year's, basically New Year's Eve.
Of 18, yeah. So 4 months apart. So, all right. Well, cheers. Enjoy the day, man. Thank you so much. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, guys, that's Phil Galfond. That's number 122. That's our second time. You guys can see the first pod with him as well. And we have got some big guests coming in the next week. So I'll get some updates on that. And I think we're going to go live on Twitch later today. I haven't decided yet. Do some poker review, show some, kind of brag about our daily fantasy score. I'm not going to claim professional, and maybe look a little Top Shot stuff and disclaimers all over the place on all that stuff, poker included. But we'll go live on Twitch, and we'll see you guys later today. So thanks again to Phil, and give him a follow across the board. Run it once. Pad's new course is out. I got to plug it because that's my dude, and it looks powerful. And I hope I know I need to do it. So that's I gotta find the time and get in. Maybe I'll try to sneak Phil or Pad's try to get a code out there or something. Maybe, who knows? We'll see if we're lucky. If not, we'll just buy it and we'll fire it, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.